Okay. Good afternoon. Kurt, good afternoon. Ben, good afternoon. You're both on mute, gents.
Afternoon, Rupert. Afternoon, everyone.
50p in the pot. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Excellent. Kurt, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for joining today's session. It's a collaboration really between two partners, Cloud9 Insight. We are a specialist CRM partner, Microsoft Dynamics 365, and we work closely with our great partners, Information EXP, Rupert and Ben and team, who are SharePoint specialists. And we thought the aim of today is to try and help and enlighten how those tools can work together to drive efficiency and collaboration, particularly around document creation and sharing. So a couple of introductions. I'm Kurt. I'm the sales director at Cloud9 Insight. I've been working with Dynamics for about 6 years now. I've seen certainly in the hundreds of companies go through the process of, is Dynamics the right thing for us? Is CRM the right thing for us? What do I even want CRM to do? And all those other questions that come around with it. So yeah, pleasure to speak to you all today, and I'll hand over to Rupert.
Thanks, Kurt. Hello, it's Rupert here. My role today is the hands-on, so to be doing the clicking and taking you through the journey of the demo. So it is a live demo. Let's see how it goes. When I'm not doing that, I'm the client director here at Information EXP. So normally I'm the first point of contact. I'm joined with my colleague, Ben. Ben is information architect when it comes to SharePoint. So he helps take our clients on their journey of how to restructure and relook at how SharePoint can work as a tool, both for document management, but also as a communication tool when we're looking at things like intranets. But looking forward to today, it's a great example of how when you start bringing Microsoft's products together, but you can drive some real value. So hopefully what you're going to walk away from today is actually how SharePoint and Dynamics work together. You know, if you've used one or both of these tools, you'll know that the interfaces are quite different. They've come from different places. SharePoint was in-house. I think Dynamics was an acquisition many years ago. And so we're going to look at how we can create custom contracts based on information which you might already have in Microsoft Dynamics. And then when you've created contracts, often it's a matter of someone needs to make some changes to those contracts before they can go to a client. So how can we bring in the subject matter experts and still maintain a single version of the truth? And then once we've done that, we'll look at how we can approve and protect contracts. So approval in terms of e-signature. So we've got that set up as well. Just so you know, we'll share these slides via email. We are recording today, so we will share that recording with you afterwards. We do have a little survey at the end, naturally in Microsoft Forms, as you'd expect from us. So please let us know how we got on. Always welcome feedback. And feel free to drop in questions at any time, and we'll look to answer those either at the time it's appropriate, or we can certainly catch up at the Q&A at the end of the session. So, Kurt.
So the main point of today is, and what we try to do with customers is really get into the business understanding of how you work, some of the challenges that you come across. So we wanted to start today with a scenario, which we hope will resonate with a number of you on the call. The first point is the main process is around, we want to get some contracts out to customers, be it a sales contract, be it an NDA, be it various different things. And the first question salespeople ask themselves is, well, where is the template? And some people are very mature and they have great SharePoint sites with these templates. Others perhaps, and you can hide behind your hands here, perhaps it's something that is in the outbox. They need to go and find the last one that they sent. They then need to download that. They need to save it. They need to rename it. And hopefully they go through and change all of the relevant details, including things like client name, potentially price, and so on and so forth. And then they send that off to be printed, scanned, and signed. So there are a number of challenges here that we see. And this can mean that you do silly errors, leaving client names in, leaving the wrong price in. It also means that new templates, new branding, new terms perhaps aren't being utilized as part of the templates, which can obviously cause challenges in terms of legality. So I hope that process resonates perhaps with some of you. And the aim of today's session is to hopefully explain and showcase how we can do better with this scenario in our businesses.
Excellent. So we've got a first demo lined up here. Kurt, do you want to guide me through creating an NDA with our client?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're starting here at our internal wiki, or our SharePoint site, effectively. So what we'd like to do here, Rupert, is just navigate into Dynamics. So Dynamics being part of that Microsoft platform, you have the same username and the same password, so you don't need to log into different places, which is advantageous. And the first thing we're going to do is, as we said, create that NDA. So if we navigate to find our accounts, who are our clients that we work with. Now, in Dynamics, we can store as many accounts as we like. And here's a very simple list or view that we call it of all of our customers. And if we jump into Alpine Ski House, this is one of our clients that we work closely with. And from here, you can see their full Dynamics record. So, everyone who works there, to all of the communications that you've had before. And the aim of this is we're going to take this through to create a document. So in the top bar, Rupert, you'll see just off the right-hand side, there's a button that says Create Document. And this is where we will have all of our templates. So you can have multiple templates for different record types. And this one we're going to use is a NDA, so confidentiality agreement. So we're going to select that one and then navigate through the document creation wizard. And what's important here is you can see there is a little tick that's auto defaulted or saved to SharePoint. So this is one of the first parts of how these tools can work really nicely together. So if you follow through that and click next, Rupert, and finish off the document creation, what's effectively doing now is using merge field technology to pull things like account name and contact name and any really field that you'd like to have inside of Dynamics. And then if we finish that process off, then we'll have created the document. Now, this document's then available to us in a couple of different scenarios. So the first one is this will be visible, although it's saved in SharePoint, from the Dynamics side. So if you just drop down the related there, Rupert, and then click on the documents piece there, then we'll be able to see the documents that have been created. So there you have it, your NDA 107. Perfect, the live demo is working great. So if we click on that and we can open up the document, then we'll see what's been generated. I'm going to hand over to Ben.
Thanks, Kurt. So yeah, as we're saying, the key point about this is that document has been generated and pushed into SharePoint, but then exposed, made available via CRM. So obviously the advantage of the document being in SharePoint is all of those sort of native features you'd expect. So things like version control, the ability to co-author and work on documents and do things like, modify names and share documents with your colleagues. A couple of things to point out, as Kurt just alluded to there, we can see that actually the fields, the company name, so our company name in this case, which is Contoso, and the client name, which is Alpine Ski House, has actually been automatically injected into the document as part of the creation process. Quite often what you would expect of part of this is that you might need to go, and as Rupert is highlighting, it's even pulled through things like the address details, etc. So all of that information has come automatically through from Dynamics and been injected into that document. Quite often what we would normally expect to do is potentially make a few modifications, perhaps if we needed to go and write a summary statement of some sort. So we're not going to go all the way through this, but Rupert, if you wouldn't mind just hovering over the edit document section there and just clicking on the available drop downs, what we can see is that we can then go and make changes to that document if we need to. We could edit it online, or we could even just go and open it natively in the desktop app. We're not going to do that right now, but it's worth bearing in mind that that is the case. So I think one final point then is that typically with an NDA, the next step of the process is that we're going to want to actually issue that document to our client for e-signature. So some of us, or most of us hopefully, will be reasonably familiar with using tools such as DocuSign or Adobe Sign. And for the purpose of this demo, we've actually integrated with a third party called Connective. Now, there's a few reasons why we've chosen that particular tool, but one in particular is the way that it's able to pick up on certain signing blocks here. So Rupert has gone and scrolled to the bottom of the document, and we can see that we've got this pattern, which is going to tell our third-party e-signature tool where it should go and inject that signing block. So that's what Rupert is highlighting there. Now, we've been opening this document in Word Online, as we've highlighted. What I wouldn't mind you doing, Rupert, could you just click on the heading actually in the sweep bar there? If you did need to change the file name of that document, you would be able to do that natively in the file name section there. So that's quite easy to do. What we're going to do is just click into the folder and see what that looks like in SharePoint itself. So Rupert's clicked on that link. We're now seeing a SharePoint experience, which is showing us all of the files that are connected to this particular Alpine Ski House record. And what we're now going to do is go and issue that document for signature. So if you can hover over the document, click on the 3 dots there, please. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do is just hover down to where it says automate and give that a second to wake up. And we can see that we've created something called a Power Automate that is going to submit for e-signature. So if you just start that, Rupert, and while that's loading, just a couple of points to note around this. There are different ways of submitting documents for e-signature and approvals and sign-offs, but we're using this Power Automate feature, which you can start using to bring in things like business processes around internal sign-offs, submitting for e-signature, attempting to get reviews, etc., etc. So it makes it really easy to kind of integrate these things together. And that's just the mechanism that we're going to use to kick this off for an e-signature. So Rupert, if you want to go and enter in the recipient of this, for the purpose of the demo, we're going to effectively send this to ourselves using our demo account. And just for this, we just need to put in the first and last name. So we'll go and kick that off. And what that's going to do is trigger a process behind the scenes that will go and submit the document for e-signature. And then what we should see in a minute is that come through into Rupert's email. And that's happened pretty seamlessly there. So we can see Rupert's jumped over to his email, and immediately we've had this email request come back from the connective e-signature software saying, hey, please can you go and sign this, this document? Let's go and have a look and see what happens when you do that, Rupert. So that's loading up the signature tool. As I said, it could be DocuSign, it could be another provider as well. We're using this particular tool because it integrates really nicely. We're going to have a little scroll down through the document, and we'll scroll down to that signature block that we know we need to use. So you can see that we're being requested to go and actually sign that document in the placeholder that we've identified. So let's first of all just declare that we're happy with these signatures and then just start signing. Couple of different ways of submitting for signing. We're using the sort of manual scribble mechanism. There are other approaches for things like, SMS one-time passcodes, but this manual approach is working fine for us. So that's going to go and apply the signature to the document. We're going to get notified back once that signature has been completed. So we'll get an email to say that we've actually signed it and we can download the signed version. However, what we're more interested in is jumping back into SharePoint in a second. So let's just go and jump back into SharePoint. And what we should see, maybe if you just refresh the screen, just in case the timing hasn't caught up. So fairly quickly, we can see that the signed PDF version of that document has actually been saved back straight into the SharePoint library. Let's jump back and see what that signature looks like. I can see that right at the bottom. So we can see the squiggle, we can see that it's been stamped. And if you were to open that up in such as a tool like Adobe Acrobat, you would see that that is a valid, trusted certificate that has been embedded in that document to ensure it's been digitally signed. So the final step, Rupert, would you mind just jumping back into the CRM record? And again, perhaps just do a quick refresh of the screen there on the top right. So again, as that document has been saved back into SharePoint, we can see that as automatically being made available directly within the CRM record. So it basically means that if you are primarily a CRM user, you don't really have to leave CRM. You can view and interact with all of your information from the CRM tool itself. Whereas if you're perhaps doing reviews and collaborating, then you may be more comfortable working in the SharePoint screen, but you're looking at the same thing. And that's it for the first demo.
I think there's one additional thing, Ben, that I was speaking about earlier, was that the fact that that workflow could also trigger something in CRM. So, for example, if you wanted an NDA sign date in the account, the flow could do that as well, so update additional fields in CRM, saving somebody having to go back and validate that piece. So that's also a nice add-on. So I'm just going to summarize, I think, what I've seen there. There's a few key takeaways. Firstly, some additional text there, but this approach ensures that your documents are on brand and compliant because you're managing them centrally. So if you update your logo or your copyright date, from say 2021 to 2022, that will all be, correct in that single version of the truth. The second thing is, and a lot of what I see is that organizations have different data in CRM as they do, say, in SharePoint. So they might use a company name in CRM, but a different one in SharePoint when the customer says that's not the right name. So what this does is creates a single source of data. It means that we're improving the quality of that data. And what you might see now in the naming standards is we used a format of NDA, and then we use a standard ISO naming format, which was year, month, day, followed by the client name. So we can force documents to follow naming standards, meaning that the organization is working in a more consistent way. Some great carrots here for people to use CRM correctly, because they're going to be working much more quickly because they don't need to create documents from scratch. They don't have to cut and paste data. And we know that we're going to get better data because we're going to use the same data in CRM to drive the legal documents, which is going to go to our end client. So 3 great reasons there why this template and document merge approach works really well. Okay, so Kurt, on to the second part.
I'm on mute. There we go. Just wanted to talk about the data structure in CRM. So one thing that's really beneficial, and if you think about those different documents that are going to different, Rupert had on his screen the opportunity record. Rupert had on his screen the account record. So those are often used for documents that are relevant to the whole business. So things like NDA, signs of terms, for example. What we're going to start to get into now is how we might be able to deal with different records and different processes associated to those accounts. So underneath in CRM, you have a hierarchy data structure where you have the account at the very top and everything rolls up to that account. But you then have the ability underneath that to have various different opportunities, and then, as we're going to show you shortly now, actually various different quotes associated to opportunities as well. So this will become a little bit clearer as we get into demo number 2. So if we can just use this Alpine ski house as an example, what we're now going to navigate to try and confirm how that data structure works is the opportunities that are associated to Alpine. So again, Rupert, if you just jump to the related tab on the account, then if you jump to opportunities, which is near the bottom under sales, this will show you then all of the opportunities that are associated to Alpine Ski House. So if you just want to pop open the new cafe fit out one as an example, this is now a separate record that is associated to Alpine Ski House and rolls up there. But now we can start to manage different data and specific sales data associated to this particular opportunity. So you're starting to see more sales focused things like estimated revenue, close date, some opportunity scoring and various other things that can help. You'll also see that this has its own timeline, which is that audit trail piece in the middle. So that's very useful for tracking particular activities that are associated to this sale. If you then jump, Rupert, to quotes, this will then show you the multiple quote opportunity that we have with Dynamics. So you'll see there that there is just one quote. We actually have the ability to have multiple quotes, and that's very useful when you're doing perhaps larger sales, larger bids, because if there's quote revisions, if there's different things that need changing, then you never lose the what's being changed there, and that can also help with things like approval processes as well. So if you jump into that quote for me, Rupert, we'll show you how you can add products to the quote using Dynamics as well. So this is a quote record. You can see in the middle, this is effectively our product list and product line items. And Dynamics has its own product catalog where you can store your products, your different price lists for different clients, also group products together, families and bundles and so on. So Rupert, if you click on add products, this will give us the really neat product selector window, which shows you all of your relevant products for this customer, and you can then choose one if you wish. You can amend the quantities, you can add multiple, and then if you save that to the quote, that will then update that quote for you, and it will also update the amounts and totals and so on and so forth. So if we go on from here, we'll then be able to create a document that's specific to this quotation. So if we use our create document button up at the top, again, you'll see this is then presenting us the different templates that we have associated to this record. And in this case, we're going to choose our standard coffee as a service quotation. Now, just to drill into some of these options a little bit more here, you can see that we have a number of different file types that can be created. So that's really useful if we are looking for version control, looking for PDF. We can also do other things from here. So Rupert was mentioning around workflows. You can see you can attach this document and send it directly out from CRM. So that could be as an email or as an attachment. And the action piece and the workflows that you see at the bottom, once they're enabled, that gives you the ability to trigger workflows, approvals, updates to management, whatever it might be from there. So if you click on next again, Rupert, that will take you through, and it will go through the same document creation process that we had before. And that will give us, when we press finish, that will create that document using all the merge field technology. And if we jump to our related again, and then to documents, then we will be able, hopefully, hey presto, to see the document that has been created. Guys, that's 2 out of 2. We're doing this really well. So if you just pop that open for me, Rupert, this will show us again all of the information that we've pulled through. So we have a really nice templated document, templated quote. We can see the subject, which was that new cafe fit out, the client name. We can see the references. And if you scroll a little bit further down, then we'll be able to see other things like templated wording, which is who we are, executive summaries, our methodology. So this is all standard information you're including on your proposals. And then if you scroll a little bit further down, we get to the investment or the order information, and this will then pull through those different products that we associated to that quotation. Now, it's great that you can see the products there with the right price per unit and the quantities and so on and so forth. But underneath that, we actually have the product details, which is, again, further information that has been automatically pulled based on the product that has been selected against that quote. So if you do, as part of your quotations, include information on the products or even pictures and things like that, then that can be, again, pulled based on selection into your quote documents as well.
Excellent. And I've seen this used a lot in professional services. So rather than products, it would be your service details, and it would put things like, in our world anyway, maybe intranet workshop or solution architecture, and it's describing what those are and making sure we're delivering a consistent experience to every customer. So it doesn't, although we talk about products and we think of physical things, it could be a service base or it could be a mix. As over here, we've got our coffee success service.
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. So I'm just going to summarize what we've just seen in that first part there. When we look at proposals, when I first started looking at this, certainly from a service perspective, you thought, well, everyone is slightly different. But actually, with a bit of thought, it is possible to productize your proposal. It doesn't have to be around products itself, but I said it could be on services. One of the things where I've seen that there's challenges with this is that when you launch this, you need a route for people to feedback if proposals are out of date or the wording is no longer correct, because you want to really do manage that centrally and make sure that people don't have to go in every time and make the same changes to the document because it's not been up to date. So a feedback loop, it could be really simple, just a Microsoft form which captures that information and turns it into a task. It doesn't have to be something complicated, but just make sure people are aware of it. And the other thing is, we've often got lost in the weeds when people are trying to build out documents or trying to think of every single scenario. And I think I would start by saying, look, plan for the 80%, the 4 out of 5 cases, and then you accept that some cases will need, some bespoke work. If you try and cater for every single scenario, often these projects get stuck and don't move forward. So I'd certainly say that would be a key takeaway from my experience. So I'm going to bring back the screen, and Ben, back over to you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Rupert. So I think probably at this point, it's just worth highlighting. We're going to go and start making some changes to this document. So let's say, for instance, again, we can see that a lot of this information has been templated, which is great. But let's say, for instance, we realize because of certain circumstances with the client that are quite ad hoc, we may need to make a couple of changes to some of the terms, for instance. Now, generally, the experience for editing documents is far superior within the Word desktop client. So Rupert, do you want to go and open up this document in the desktop client now?
Okay, let's just
Give that a second for you to bring that up and switch over.
let's just try that again. Oh no, here it's here. There we go.
Perfect, good stuff. So we're in the document in the full fat client for Word now. Couple of things that I just want to highlight straight away. So again, for those of you that aren't that familiar with using SharePoint as an editing experience, a couple of things that we get off the cuff. First of all, we have autosave is on automatically. We're not having to download documents, work on them, and re-upload them. We just open them directly from SharePoint. Word is able to integrate natively and immediately get that autosave functionality. So you don't have to worry about making those changes for 30 minutes, Word crashes, and you've lost that work, which I'm sure we've all experienced at some point in the past. The other thing, again, which I do want to call out, which is incredibly powerful, if you click in the header where you were about to click, Rupert, is, again, we have the ability, even though the document is open, it is possible to rename these files, even if you've got colleagues that are working on it at the same time. So that's quite a powerful ability to go and do some file renaming if you need to. We'll come back to the version history in a little bit. Okay, so if we have a little scroll down, please, let's go to the terms that have been inserted. So we'll go past the table of contents. We're going to go to the terms. So we can see here there's these USA additional terms here that have been inserted. I just wanted to sort of call out what Kurt has already been highlighting, which is based on the various configuration settings of the Dynamics opportunity, various bits of paragraphs and text have been inserted, but it may be the case that you want to make some modifications. So what we're going to do now is just demonstrate some of the core co-authoring and sharing functionality with SharePoint. So Rupert, would you mind sharing this document? So Rupert's going to share this with unfortunately, we do have live demo scenarios that don't always work. Let's just try that one more time. Okay, it's fine. We're gonna revert back to backup. So Rupert, if you just shut that down, please. It's okay. We'll shut it down. So we're going to do this from the web version. I think sometimes native demos, I think so far we've done very well with the demo, but sometimes things happen. So Rupert, would you mind just pushing the share button? And we're just going to go and share that with our colleague Nesta. Perfect. So Rupert has sent a sharing request to Nesta to basically say, hi, can you help us out? I want to be able to work on this document with me. I want to be able to work on it together. Now, I'm going to be driving Nesta behind the scenes, so you won't see that side of it. So I'm just going to go and bring that up. Give me a second for that to see that sharing request. I'm going to go and open the document now. And what we should start to see in a second, if you watch the screen, you'll start to see the power of co-authoring come together. Just gonna make sure I navigate to the right place. I can see where Rupert is. I can start adding in some terms here, and what we'll see in a second, what you should be able to see on the screen is the little cursor is highlighted, and now if I start entering, we'll start seeing that I can make modifications. So I may choose to add some slightly different terms. Please don't mark my homework in terms of the wording itself, but I'm going to put in a few bits and pieces that I've grabbed from somewhere else. Let's just go and enter that in. Between the parties, constitutes, etc., etc. So we're not, as I said, overly concerned about the wording itself that I'm putting in, but you can see that as I type ahead at my end, those modifications are coming through in the document as Rupert has got it open. Okay, So I've been making a few changes. Rupert's shared it with me for my review. The other thing that is just worth highlighting is the ability to assign comments. And what we effectively have nowadays is this concept called modern comments. So Rupert, if you've got a concern about a particular section, what you can do is then go and mention the person that you want to draw their attention to. So when you go and assign your comment, if you mention someone, then they're actually going to get notified. If they haven't already got access to the document, then you would be prompted to go and share it with them. But if they do, they're going to get a notification and they can open that up and they'll be taken straight into the particular section of the document that's got that modern comment applied. So I can then respond to that and go, Megan, yes, that's fine. Good to go. Let's just go and post that in. What we should see in a second is that I've responded with my comments and I'm happy with that, that particular section. Now, unfortunately, because we had a slight hiccup in the demo, there is one final thing that I do want to demonstrate, but that does need to be done from the Word client again. So Rupert, would you mind just jumping back into the Word client if you haven't got it open already? It's worth highlighting as Rupert's doing that. He went to edit and he's just going to go and open straight into the desktop app and we'll be able to pick up exactly where we left off. So with the same comments, the same content, etc. But it just means that we can show a couple of additional points. The final point that we just wanted to highlight is that as we've been working on this document, of course, because we're in SharePoint, all of these changes will be tracked and we're able to then track them via version history. So Rupert, if you want to click on the heading there and we click on version history, what we will see is that as we've been working on this document, it has started to generate new versions. And of course, as you make ongoing amendments and co-author with colleagues, that will go and generate those additional versions. If you did, we're not going to do this right now, but if you did want to go and have a look at the previous version, you could do that. And then you'd even be able to compare it using a track changes style experience, which makes it really easy to see what may have been modified at what point in time. So we've done the work, we've done the internal review of that document. What you may choose to do is then tie that into an internal approval process. We're not going to demonstrate that now, but as we've alluded to, that's the kind of thing that can be done within the Power Automate functionality. But realistically, at this point, we then need to go and make this available to the client. We could share this with the client directly. That is perfectly possible if you want to open up and have that collaboration experience with them. But actually, quite often, when it comes to things like sending quotes, we're comfortable with just sending them via email. So what we're going to do now is jump into our email and we're just going to start a new email to our recipient. So Rupert, why don't you send that to your in real life email address, IRL. Send that to Information XP. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And we're going to go and send through the quote. So I don't have to go digging for the document. What I can do is click on the attach button and we'll see that that document that I've just been working in is there as my recent attachment. And if I click on that, and I'm going to be prompted to actually go and send that document directly. One thing I do want to draw your attention to with this is that by default, when you do attach documents this way, we have the advantage of getting to them really quickly, but the default behavior is that it is going to try and send a sharing link. So sometimes your IT settings may stop you from sharing externally. So we are going to actively choose by clicking on the drop down to attach as a copy, which makes sure that the document is embedded in the email and sent over to the client. Okay. So let's just go and send that, Rupert. Or maybe put some nice words in first, of course. Marvelous. So we're going to send that. Now, I mean, yes, don't worry about that being undeliverable. That's because we're using a demo environment. So no alarm, no need to be alarmed there. I think probably the point that we do want to discuss here is that because we're not actively sharing the document with someone, we want to maintain that separation of access when we're sharing the documents with the recipient. But let's say they did send something back with some markup and we did want to be able to compare it. It would just be a case of taking that attachment and saving it on top of the existing document. As long as it's got the same name, you can save it on top of the existing document in SharePoint. that will generate a new version, and you'll immediately be able to see via track changes any modifications that that client had made. So you don't need to be forced into having lots of copies. You can just save the response from the client back into SharePoint and upload it as a version on top of the existing document. Are there any other points that you wanted to add, Rupert? I think otherwise, I think that covers it.
No, I think you're spot on there. I mean, let's just highlight what we've seen there. So we talked about sharing documents. I think, one of the things is if you do share a document, and Ben was saying, typically internally, when you share it to somebody who doesn't have access to that area of SharePoint, you're only granting access to that document, not to the whole of that area of SharePoint. So you're not creating a huge security gap. The second piece is the app mentions to highlight, so you can get away from maybe emails and just saying, here are 5 things I'd like you to change, and you can directly point someone into that document, and they're going to get an email to show, where that help is needed. We talk about the single version of the truth. All the way through this, we've been using one document. Yes, we still sent an email out because we know that many organizations aren't comfortable with allowing third parties access to their environment. We're the same. So we send emails out with attachments. So when that attachment comes back in, we can, as Ben said, we can save it back on top of the existing version. What the great thing about that is that if someone does change your document, maybe doesn't put track changes on, you don't need to go line by line to review it. Microsoft Word will highlight the differences for you so you can quickly see where they have made those changes. So that summarizes we talked about the creation of the documents, the sharing, the collaboration, and e-signature side. So we're just going to wrap up and just tell you what you've seen today. So we've used a number of tools. So we've used Microsoft Dynamics CRM. That's for sales management, the creation of the quotes. It's where we manage the quote products and the customer details. So that's our source of the truth when we talk about the customer information. We've seen SharePoint Online. So that's the document management, the sharing, the collaboration, and SharePoint Online sits behind what drives Microsoft Word there as well. The document generation tool. So that's a third-party product. It's called the Doc Core Pack from MS Add-ons. That's the tool which creates the document. We saw a very high level of what it's capable of, but there's lots more flexibility within that tool. And it's very clever in the way that it can bring back information from different parts of Microsoft CRM. So, for example, one of the things it can do, because it could create a letter, for example, and say, by the way, these are all the quotes that we have open with you. Are any of these which you wish to progress with us? And it can drill down and repeat all the quotes, for example. So it doesn't have to be just based repeating on a product. And then the final solution you saw was Connective, which Ben showed how that most of that work happens behind the scenes using Power Automate. So Power Automate being the workflow tool within Microsoft 365, driving that e-signature, pushing the document out to the Connective tool, and then sucking it back in again. One of the reasons why we talk about Connective a lot is a very cost-effective compared with other tools. So we've looked at DocuSign and Adobe Sign, and for their automation solutions, it is quite an investment, whereas Connective is under £1,000 a year if you're looking for around 500 signatures. So it's a very low cost solution in the field in which it plays. So there's 3 things that to think about. I think walking away from today, we're going to do a quick Q&A after this. Is like, if you're using Dynamics or thinking about using Dynamics, if you've got SharePoint, which of those documents can be more process driven? How can you give more time back to the people who create those? And think about increasing the quality both of the data within those documents, but also within your within CRM. And finally, the questions: what goes wrong? What's that email proposal which goes out because something hasn't been done correctly? Is it that it's got the wrong legal T's and C's attached to it? Maybe that in one part of the document someone's used company name LTD and somewhere else they've used limited, and that means that when they did search and replace, something got missed. So these are all the kind of things that can be picked up by taking a bit of time just to formalize and productize how you generate documents.